was Gamkein Ho'er Havaya. Vehine. Question is boy Leo, right? So Yosef is not coming in. Wait up. Wait on your phone. All right. We had a very long discussion, and now we're coming sort of to the end of that discussion and into the next point. And the discussion is regarding this principle of Havaya and Elikim. You can have a copy. How are you, Yosef? You ready for Rosh Hashanah? Huh? You said Slichas? You need to say? It need to be B'simchas, Yosef. You didn't do everything b'simcha, even when they say tachnun, they're b'simcha. You know why? Why? Why are they b'simcha? Why are you no b'simcha? I don't know, are you b'simcha? I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm asking you a simple question. If you are b'simcha, then you should know the answer why. Why are you no b'simcha? Yidden. Because of what we're learning here. The Hashem Havaya and the Hashem Elikim. Hashem Elikim is giving everything in a very limited way, but through that we are connected to Hashem Havaya, to unlimited, and that's why we receive. From everything that we do, we have to be sensing that there is the limited thing that we are doing, and behind that there is the greater, the unlimited thing. Okay? So you can sit down, simcha, and learn. So we were saying that there is Havaya and Elikim, and although it would appear to be that Havaya and Elikim are really opposite effects, Havaya represents Bli Gvul and Elikim is in von Tzimtzum, and this is what we have in the world, that in the world everything comes through a Tzimtzum Dike, to a pathway. And we discussed this in a very broad ways and extensively, how everything in the world has to come through in a Tzimtzum Dike way. Just like if you drink something, you can't just jump in the lake and drink. You have to take a little sip through your mouth. And this little sip ultimately can get enough water to give you chayas. And there is, so to speak, unlimited resources to be able to satisfy that. This is the simple Gashmistic illustration of the principle that we're discussing here, that behind the Halakim there is always the Shem Havaya. And what the Shem Halakim is expressing is that which is behind it, is the Shem Havaya. Okay, so let us continue here. Just as we explained previously in the Moshel, or the Mashpia Makabel, the Moshel of Mashpia Makabel. So we explained over there, just to remind ourselves, that Mashpia and Makabel are really in totally two different levels. Because as we explained, that the principle of Mashpia and Makabel, what justifies that term, that this is a Mashpia and this is a Makabel, not that this one knows something, this one doesn't know. Because everything that, if he knows it, so then if he tells it, it becomes known to the other. Mashpia is pshat not what he knows. Mashpia is the pshat that he has a personal insight, a personal knowledge, beyond that which can be expressed in words to the Makabel. And therefore his Mashpia, his personal insights. He can't even give the Makabel everything, this whole insight that he has. It's much deeper and much higher than anything the Makabel can possibly relate to and understand. And yet, he's a Mashpia, he's Makabel. What is he Mashpia? He's Mashpia, a very chitzonistic, a very limited representation of that which he has in his own insight. And yet, we explained, Shehamakabel Yuchal Lovei, that the Makabel has the ability to reach Gam Kein Leoimek Pnimis V'Atzmus Chochmos Orav. He can reach to the depth and the Pnimius and even the Atzmus of Chochmos Orav. Even the Atzmus of the Chochmos Orav. Just to remind ourselves and refresh what we've discussed, the term of Pnimius and then Atzmus of Chochmah. I'm not going to go into the whole discussion, but essentially, just to get a sense of it, Atzmus, Chochmos Orav, refers to that level of Chochmah where the truth is recognized and is known without the process and the arguments that bring you to know it. Way beyond it. You recognize the truth directly. The essential chokhmah, the essential truth of this inyan. This is Atzmus Chochmos Orav. And the Talmid, even though he gets only the chitzonius, but these chitzonius, if he utilized properly, can lead him to be able to reach to the pnimius and even the atzmus of the chokhmah. This is one explanation why in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe writes in the introduction, right in the cover page of the Tanya, he writes that the Tanya is mipisforim and mipisoifrim. That he is representing, he got the information that he's representing is what you learned from Sforim and Soifrim. Sforim and from books and writers, so to speak, and his teachers. And yet, throughout the Tanya, there is almost no reference to any source for anything that he says. There are very, very few. No reference at all where he gets these various things that he explains. And the answer, the explanation for that is that you have to bring a source only as long as the essence of this chokhmah belongs to this your teacher. You understand only a certain level, but you don't have the pnimis and atzmos. So therefore you cannot base it on what you know. The real basis of that is because the Rav said it. That's where you have a source. Because that which you know is not enough to make this really substantial. Do you understand English well?
Not so good, but I understand.
You understand what I'm saying? But once one reaches into the Pnimis and Atzmos Chochmas Rav, then it becomes his own Chochmah. Of course he learned it from his Rav. But now he got to the source of the Chochmah. And that's why there's no point of quoting. He says it not because his Rav told him, but because he got it from the source. But who, at this point, that the Makabel and the Talmud can reach to the Omek and Pnimis and Atzmos Chochmos Orav, is represented to who? This is represented by what it says, Ma de'achar arboim shnin koim adaita de Rabbi. When the Gemara says, actually we learned, Rashi brings it down in last week's Parsha, 2 weeks ago, that after 40 years, koim adaita de Rabbi, that a person cannot reach the full das of his Rebbe till 40, but after 40 he does. So just as this is true in the Moshel of Mashpia Makabel, this is the most important, this is the important point. The similar Inyan can be understood B'hanim shal gamkein, in the nimshal also. What is the nimshal of this moshel? The nimshal, Yasel. The nimshal in this is the Inyan from Shem Havai and Shem Elikim, that the world is comes through the creation, through the Tzimtzum, through the Helen, the Hester, and the Shem Havaya, the real Inyan of Elokus, is hidden. This is the moshel and the nimshal. So the nimshal also, the be'emes, it is also true. Yochel kol lechod ve'echod lovei, every individual is capable of reaching lebchinas gilui oil pnimius ve'asmius ein soid the Shem Havai, to the gilui of the pnimius asmius of the ein soid of Shem Havai, sheyoyir begilui benafshoi, that the Shem Havaya, this ein soid, should be meir, should shine in a revealed way and openly in his nefesh. To put this in very simple terms, what this would mean from our perspective, so to speak. Our perspective always means those things that we are struggling with. Like if somebody says, what is a wealthy man? So it depends who he's talking to. But what is a simple, a pauper say? I think, a wealthy man, wow. He can go to the store and buy a bottle of milk anytime. A wealthy man. What is somebody else say, well, a wealthy man? Oh, he can buy a car, whatever he wants. Everybody's is representing it, so to speak, from his level, from his perspective. So we speak in terms of Gilui Pnimis Atzmus Eirin Soid Shem Havaya She'oed Begil B'Nafshi. How does that contrast with what our preoccupation is, from our perspective? From our perspective, this would mean that the world would not pose any kind of confusion, any kind of challenge. There would be no possibility that the world would entice us, would draw us to do that which is contrary to Hashem's will. And even more than that, like I spoke about before to Yosef, there's no way that one can be not besimcha, because he's constantly not besimcha is because of the world, because of the darkness of the world, but he's constantly in the light, in the bright light. He's constantly recognizing the true meaning of life and true meaning of Avodas Hashem, and he lives with it. So this is and so to speak, a synopsis or an actualization, a demonstration in terms that we are struggling with of this in Gili Oy Pnimis V'Atzmos Ein Sof. If it's Pnimis Atzmos Oir Ein Sof, the Oir Ein Sof, the unlimited light. The unlimited light, immediately, you recognize immediately, there's no question, where is the world come from? The reason we have a question where the world comes from is because we see darkness, and then we see all of a sudden a whole bunch of stuff. Where does it come from? But if we see Oir Ein Sof, then there's no question where it's coming from. There's Oir Ein Sof. All the different problems that we struggle with are eliminated. And then, of course, there's much higher than that. But to get us a perspective, this is what it means. And everyone can come to the level where there will be no question in his nefesh, ever, as to what is he doing here. What's the purpose of his life? What's the purpose? What is the meaning of everything else going on? We know, no question of it. Because he sees right away the Oir Eliki. Bahainu, and how can this be effected? How can this be accomplished? Alidei Aveidosoi, as a result, and through his own avodah, bigio, with toil and labor, bigias nefesh or bigias bosor. And igio entails, as you learned in Tanya, two types of igio. There's igias nefesh, the subjugating of one's koiches, of the concentration with the mind, and focusing in and working deeply with one's seichel and midas. That's igias nefesh. Or igias bosor is to force the body to follow a regimen, to follow and do what is right, and not to give in to bodily desires when they are not of good purpose. Lahosir hahalomes vehestadim, to remove all the concealment of godliness, and through this avoida, hareihu bal lebchinas gilui pnimis v'atzmos ein sof. Through that he can come to gilui pnimis v'atzmos ein sof, to revealing the pnimis v'atzmos ein sof. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying here, that even though one can learn about Elokus, learning about the Elokus alone is not going to do it, because you're learning only the Chitzonius. You're learning only the Chitzonius. You're learning it from a world from a worldly perspective. Therefore, you can learn about the Elokus and remain entirely lowly and in the world, and worldly oriented. To be relating to Pnimis Atzmus Ein Sof requires avodah and igia. This principle avodah v'igia, this is similar to what the Rebbe is telling us. I'm sure you came across this. The Rebbe says that the hachana for Mashiach and the anticipation of Mashiach has to be done in the way that you should act and think as if Mashiach is here. In other words, it's not enough to expect him at some point. But the real preparation is to actually experience through your avodah this principle of Mashiach. This is avodah. Learning about Mashiach, you learn, you know, Mashiach is going to come, such and such is going to happen, but you don't experience. You wait for it to happen. So the Rebbe says that is not enough, and what's needed is that one should do avodah in Mashiach. What is the avodah? That one should actually be focusing in and reflecting in Mizboinin and set his mode of life in this manner, like Mashiach is here. Like he doesn't have any morally concerns, doesn't have any challenges. He has full Ahavas Yisrael. He's not concerned about anything happening to himself. This is like Mashiach is here. This is something which one has to actually do avoid. This is not by learning. It's not going to happen, because naturally a person falls down. That's what they say many over here. That they have to remove the alomis v'hasteirim requires avodah, to actually force himself to disregard and break through these alomis v'hasteirim. Excuse me? You have to put something in your eye?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead. The Rambam says, and it's put down in Shulchan Aruch, in terms of how a person has to behave in his life. So the Shulchan Aruch also speaks how a person is supposed to behave. In business, these are all dinim in Shulchan Aruch. So it says that if a person has identified some kind of a negative midah, some kind of a quality that needs to be corrected, how does he correct it? He goes the opposite. Going the opposite is real avodah. It's not enough to explain to him, oh, this is not right, this is right. It's not going to happen. He has to actually act and train himself to act the other way. It's an interesting inyan. One would think that the most difficult part of training oneself is to convince oneself in seichel, to realize what is right and what is wrong. Once you know what's right and what's wrong, then you'll do what's right and won't do what's wrong. And as it turned out, that's the easiest part. Almost everybody understands right from wrong. He has to learn everything, but generally speaking, it is evident what's right and when it's right and when it's wrong. But if you know that it's wrong, so why are you going there? Why are you doing it? The answer is, this is Mitzvah HaLomis V'Hasteirim. You feel you belong there. Yeah, you can't dissociate, you can't break away. You belong there. It is wrong, but that's where you belong. You have to break the connection. How do you break the connection? You have to break it. And this is why there's a requirement of doing avodah. It's not enough to learn. But avodah has no limit what it can accomplish. This is what we're saying over here. Then there is no limit. With avodah, one can really break through and take away all the coarseness of the world, and he can actually get a gilui elokus benafshe, actually sense the truth of godliness, way beyond reason, way beyond the logical proofs and so forth. Just the very experience, the very true experience of it itself. And it says, okay, and to connect it to what they discuss in the whole Maimer is the reason that he can reach it. The reason that he can reach it through avodah. So this is a very important principle to us to understand. The reason you can reach it through avodah. Let me go back to the mashal in the case when a person wants to break a bad habit, a bad midah, and he goes to the opposite. The reason that that works is not that he's superimposed, he just trained himself to act one way or another. This is like training lahavdil an animal. You know, animals get trained. You know, a horse has to be trained to take a saddle and to walk in line and to obey. But this is not how we do it. This is not what a human being, training of a human being entails. That's not what we're talking about. The reason that it works is that really deep down in his nefesh, he has that quality. Deep down in his nefesh, the general principle in this is that the Rambam says that the proper derech in a person's life is to be the derech ha-mitzvah. To be, not to go into one extreme or another, to be the path that is guided by seichel. A person tends to go to one extreme or another extreme. So by training himself, by going to the opposite extreme, he can ultimately straighten out and go and start going in the proper path. The reason that happens is that really deep down in a person, this idea, this principle that you have to be in derech ha-mitzvah, that is something which he recognizes in his own self. This is a real sense. This is not just seichel argument. He can really relate to it. This is real life. This is the way a human being is supposed to be. And he relates to it. And this is why, by breaking away from his habit and training himself the other way, this quality will surface, it will reveal in himself, and he will feel, oh, this is really zkut. It's really a different life. To stay online and not to go in one extreme or another, that's really a lot. He'll be able to relate to it personally. This is the similar in over here. The reason that it's possible through avodah, by removing all the alomis v'hasteirim, to reach to the point where one has a gilui is that really it is there behind all the alomis v'hasteirim, all the Shem Elokim, there is a Shem Havaya. And when he breaks through the alomis v'hasteirim, he actually reaches to this truth. That's what he says. That which is way above of the aspect of chitzenius, shenase mokir lo'olamas. The chitzenius, which is, as we said, that which comes through the Shem Elokim, this which becomes a mokir lo'olamas, which becomes a source, and this is actually the koyach that ultimately creates the world. This is the chitzenius. And through avodah he can come to the pnimis v'atzmos ein sof, that which is way above this mokir lo'olamas, the chitzenius. Okay, you with us a little bit? Huh? Obi or hoinyam. Further to clarify this inyan, that he's saying that there is a Shem Havai and there is a Shem Elokim, and this is how the world is created. So what we have in the world, we have only the chitzonius. We don't have the pnimis at all. And yet, there is an aspect that's called Yigia, Avodah, and to that you can reach to the pnimis. So what is this all about? How was the world created? Was the world created to be Bechitzonius or to be Pnimius? To be Gilu Ein Sof or not to be Gilu Ein Sof? So the biur of this is like this. Tzorich lahagdim tchilo inyan hanisyonis. To understand this, we first have to discuss the principle of nisyonis. Nisyonos, the word nisyon means a test. And there has to, think that we know that the Rebbe puts us through tests. There has to be some kind of an essential and important accomplishment in the test. Before we go into the mimer in this nisyonis, I want to discuss the word nisyoin, a test, as we experience it in here in our life. Not the big nisyoin hachayim, but nisyoin is a test. So we know that in any yeshiva, in any school, a boy learns. He learns a half a year, and then he's given a test. And what is the purpose of this test? And on the basis of this test, he is given a mark. It says, okay, he's got Aleph, Beis, Gimel, whatever it is. Basis of this test. This boy learned in yeshiva for a half a year or for a year. And during this year, he learned a lot of different things. And his Rebbe was able to talk to him and see how he understands everything. And yet, at the end, he gives him a test. What's the point of the test? Didn't you see how he learned? And the answer is that a person can be learning and doing all the things, that is involved that he has to do in class, for instance. But he is not personally relating to that which he learns. Doesn't mean much to him. So he learns. While he is learning, he is learning. The minute he closes the book, he has no connection to it. Ask him a question, what did he learn? I don't know. But you just learned and you were so good. Yeah, while it was good, while it lasted. But it has nothing to do with me. It's not something that I can take with me when I go doing my own thing. That means that he didn't really sense the reality, the real power of that which he learned, the real significance of it. This is why he knows that at the end of the year he's going to have a test. This test is going to prove not how much he learned, but how much this which he learned meant to him. When he really relates to it. This is the principle of a test. And the same thing is true in life. A person is being tested in life, even though there's a flow of life. Every day a person makes all kinds of different choices. But the test is that which clearly gives a person the chance to clearly make a statement, what he stands for, what is his life about. Okay, so now we'll learn inside. Hu Masha Kosuf. The principle with the Nisayin is that we want to discuss is what it says in the Pasuk, Ki menase Havaya Lekechem Eschem. That Havaya Lekechem is testing you. Which means that the Torah is telling us, Shemenasim es ha'odom, Im Yamoid b'Nisayin. We test the person, Milmailo, a person is tested, Im Yamoid b'Nisayin, whether he is going to stand up to the Nisayin. But tzorich lehovin, and therefore we need to understand maho hakavono ho'elyoino b'hanisyonos. What is the kavono? What is the intent? And what is the purpose that there is milmailo in these nisyonos? What is intended by it, and what is meant to be revealed and accomplished by it? Elsewhere it is explained, the whole tachlis yiridas haneshama beguf, that really, not only that there is such a thing as test, but more than that, the tachlis yiridas haneshama, the whole purpose of the neshama coming down in the guf, shehi yirido gedoylo, which is a tremendous descent. The neshama coming down in the guf is a tremendous fall down for the neshama. The haray, since that koidim ridosa beguf, before the neshama coming down into the guf, hoy so imedis boilam ha'elyain, the neshama was in the higher world, in the world of the neshama, but the world that the neshama can easily relate to. Began Eden hatachtoin, hoy began Eden ha'elyain. Either Gan Eden Tachten or Gan Eden Elyon in the Oil Man Shomis. Ki Odua Meinyan Me'ayin Bosa. as is discussed and explained in the Inyan on the Ayin Bosa, when the Mishnah says that a person has to reflect to himself, Me'ayin Bosa, where are you coming from? And this Me'ayin Bosa is referring to Gan Eden HaTachten, Gan Eden HaElyon, that he came from Ayin, he came from a world that is higher than Yesh Metzias. V'hoi so Maseges Elokus. And there the neshama was able to fully comprehend the Elokus, v'yomdo, v'yahava, v'yiro, and the neshama was then in a constant status. Omdo means it stood. It stood means it stood without change. In a state of ava v'yiro, or v'bchinas bitul be'elokus. And it has total bitul to Elokus. Because it realized Elokus, it connected to Elokus, it was completely bottled to Elokus. I'll discuss this in a few moments. That Neshama was B'chinas Bitul to Elokus, Mishakosov, as the Pasuk says, Chai Havaya Asher Amadeti Lefonov. This is a pasuk in Tanakh where the Novi Eliyahu says, Chai Havaya Asher Amadeti Lefonov. Chai Havaya, this is like in Shavua, he makes a promise, a vows, in the name of Hashem, Asher Amadeti Lefonov, before whom I stood. And this Amadeti Lefonov refers to the Neshama standing in front of Hashem in Gan Eden. The Amido Lamailo, and uses the term Amadeti Lefonov, I stood before him. What does standing before him mean? When it says Amido Lamailo, when it uses the term Amido, standing, regarding the way things are Lamailo, Sheine Shayach Shom Amido V'Yeshiva. Well, the whole principle of standing and sitting does not exist. So therefore, what is Amido referred to? What does Amido represent? Hu Bechinas Bitl. Amido is expressing the union of Bitl, Mishakoseh B'Mokimach, as it explained elsewhere. Is up? HaYom is up. 50% of the class is up.
Why specifically Amida? When the Jews come to Beis Hamikdash, so the Bitul, it's when they Mishtacharim, like they fallen on the floor.
Right.
Shkiva is like more Bitul.
Right. Let me explain a little bit the principle of a beetle first. It's an interesting thing to say that a person should have beetle. On the other hand, say a person should be strong. Al yevish mipnei amaligim, he shouldn't be spoiled, shouldn't be affected by other pressures. Should stand strong. The Rebbe always mentions that the first Sif from Shulchan Aruch says, Al yevish mipnei amaligim, that one should not be embarrassed, should not take heed from maligim, people who make fun of him for doing Torah mitzvahs. In order to do that, you have to be a yesh, you can't be bottle. So to illustrate the principle of beetle a little bit, this is like a window. A window can be so pure and clear that you don't see it at all, and it allows the full light of the sun to come in. The window can be so pure that you have the full light of the sun, like there's no interference whatsoever. Right? No interference whatsoever, the whole light comes through. And yet, it's only a window. It allows the light to come through. But it is mitzvahs. Like we have a room, like we said, there's windows, there are walls and windows. The window allows the light to come through, but the window is standing in a wall. It's held up by a wall. So that we see from this that it's possible to be a Metzius, and yet not to be an obstruction. And what obstruction means? Not to be interfering with light. The same thing is in the person, in Nefesh Hod. Even in our own experience, sometimes we realize something, we have a thought, a pure thought, and then the world, our relating to the world and our physical orientation begins to question, is this really real? How does that fit? How will that affect this particular situation or that particular situation? In other words, we can see the truth, but we also need to relate it to the physicality of the world. Just to see the truth itself is not enough. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, at one point he says a person can say Shema Yisrael with closed eyes, and he says Hashem Echad, and he really recognizes Hashem Echad. And then he opens his eyes, all of a sudden it vanishes. All of a sudden the whole world becomes a Metzius. Why does the world become a Metzius? Let's say, imagine this. Somebody says Hashem Echad. He's bottled to Meibush completely. And while he's saying Shema Hashem Echad, somebody gives him a push. It's 770, right? Somebody gives him a push. And he gets angry. Why are you pushing me? I realize you pushed me and you interrupted in the middle of my Shema, of saying Shema. So, if you were truly involved in Shema, and you realize you have Mesiras Nefesh and Echad, how does this interfere with it?
Hashem push it?
Hashem gives you a little push, right? In your science, you should know, are you really for real? So you have to understand the Inyan Hashem Echad. And that you have to understand with your seichel. But this seichel does not obstruct. In other words, it does not require that you should that it should be something worldly. You understand it from a godly perspective. It is mamash elokus. While you are in the world, you recognize elokus. That the real mitzvah of the world is elokus. So even though there is a mitzvah of the world, but you realize that the real mitzvah of the world is elokus. This is the pshat bittul. Bittul means that you are mitzvahs. If you're not a mitzvah, you don't have to be bottled. You are a mitzvah. But this mitzvah recognize it's completely open to receiving the light from the light of godliness. It doesn't need its own mitzvahs. It doesn't need its own mitzvahs. If the fact that the Rebbe made me, that's enough for me. I don't need to have my own place. That's what bittul. So the neshama l'maylo was in total bittul. Was also a neshama. He understood the likus. But he was in total bittul. He understood the likus. And this understanding itself, you see, in our mitzvahs, in our world, like we said before, you understand something, and then there are two separate things between you and that which you understand. You still have to have avoided to bring it in. The mile is not like that. That which the neshama understood, that is what the neshama was. There's no interference whatsoever, because it had total bittul. Because it had total bittul, you can understand the highest in Yonim of Elokus. You didn't need to translate it in Mitzias. Okay, we get the point a little bit, Yonim? Huh? You with me?
Oh, bittul.
You have bittul?
I
Huh?
mean, it's a thing that there's a lot of bonus for
His bonus is later, but right now what we are discussing, his bonus that has to do with your avodah. But you understand what we're saying now?
A simple idea, I guess, yeah.
Okay. So because the neshama was without, had a state of bittul, so therefore he was masik lakus, was able to understand the lakus, and he was in a state of Abba V'yira, because his hasoga immediately translated in Abba V'yira. There was no gap between. Okay, now you asked me about Ishtachavo and Amida. So, this is the difference. Ishtachavo is a different level of bittul. Ishtachavo is where there is no hasoga whatsoever. There's no mitzias. Right. Amida is when there is a mitzvah, where is what? This is the standard. This is the normal Aveda. Shtachava is Bemis and like in Aveda Yisrael, it's only in Mizan Mikdash. There's no Shtachava any place else.
According like you explained before, this bitul neshama, bitul neshama beguf, I understand that bitul neshama is bitul b'mitzius. Like what neshama understand, she's become state.
That's not Bitul Mitzvahs. No, because he understands.
She's still bitul ayeh.
Yes, it's still Bitul Ayesh. But right, because it comes through his understanding. But we explained all the time that anything comes through conduit, comes through a path, is a yes. Right?
So in Beis Hamikdash, Jew can reach bitul b'mitzius, like higher bitul than neshama, not in the body.
In the Beis Hamikdash there was Gilui Elokus. In Beis Hamikdash there was the Kodesh HaKodoshim when there was Gilui Ha'atzmos. This was not a normal thing. The minute they Leah left the Beis Hamikdash, everything evaporated. Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara says, you learn in the Mishnah, there were 10 nisyonis that were constant. One of the nisyonis was that the smoke stack, the smoke pillar that came up from the Mizbeach, didn't waver, it went straight up. That's not, and yes, it was constant. The whole world was built. In Beit HaMikdash itself there were madrigas in a different, all they called it Kodesh HaKadoshim. But the whole presence of Beit HaMikdash was complete beat. That's why in Beit HaMikdash there was Avedas HaKorbonis. Korbonis is when you completely burn out of Mizbeach, the whole thing. Lift ashes. That's why we're so anxious waiting for the Beis Hamikdash. All right. So the neshama was in a very high madriga, where he was able to be masig alakus and stood with full beetle. V'yordo b'seiser hamadregis, and then the neshama descended through the various system of madregis, b'olam hazeh, into this world. Shenisrachako me'er havaya, where we became distant from the godly light. Sheino maseges elokus k'mei she'isigo l'maylo. It cannot comprehend elokus the way it understood it. It was able to comprehend it l'maylo, above. I want to, before we close, to explain this in Hasogas Elokus K'mei she'isigo l'maylo. What does Hasogas Elokus mean? In this world, to put things very, very simply, the way we look at this world, the way we see the physical world, with, we see an object, we see a table. So first, the real reality in the world is the wood, the physicality of it. Then we say, okay, what is it for? What does it do? In other words, its true purpose becomes secondary. And its mitzias, its physicality is the primary thing that we see. And its purpose becomes almost secondary. Say, oh, you utilize this for this. Therefore it means that its existence really the significance of its existence. But why is this table here? This is the real thing that we don't really relate to. We relate to it only as a secondary thing. It's not really real. We don't realize the true phenomenon that why are things there? What is the meaning that there is a world? We don't realize that. We see, first of all, there is a world. Then we ask, okay, what is it about? What are we supposed to do with it? Elokus, the principle of Elokus is that which is a true presence. It doesn't need an explanation why is it there. It doesn't need an explanation because it's a true presence. Completely self-explanatory. In this world, the neshama is not capable of massing the lakus the way it was massing here. Why? Because wherever it turns around, this is Gashmius. And Gashmius is an insignificant presence. Everything that we see in Gashmius, it could be, could not be. Who cares? We first have to start being misboined and say, no, but there's a purpose, there's a reason, there's a kavanah. But what do we see? We see something which is totally insignificant. The whole world is insignificant.
Is it significant?
Significant. Yes, there's no tachlis. So, tam liyot. Lama. And to be able to rise up and start looking at the true kavona, the true presences of whole Aveda. It's a lifetime of it. And the Neshama came from a world where that is all it saw, Elokus. Everything was real. It comes down to this world that it's not cannot be Masik Elokus the way it was Masik L'mayla. It could be Masik Elokus, but not in the same level, the same way. It could see that there is a kavan like as a secondary level, but not always near to the way it was L'mayla, where there was no physical obstruction. But the Hasaga Elokus, L'mayla, but the Neshama, that already was the oinek. That was already its food. That was its simcha, just the Hasaga. Didn't mean anything else. Okay? A little bit.